I'm ready to play some music. All right. We're starting with drums this time around. Here we go. This album, Redefinition, what I wanted to do was create something that was really organic and authentic sounding from start to finish. Because in the past, what I've kind of done is really meticulously mapped out all of the parts, programmed everything in there, edited and done tons of takes of the guitar parts just to really try to get everything sounding perfect. But in the end, I felt like it wasn't really an authentic representation of who I was or what I was trying to accomplish. So I wanted to create something that just sounded like it was done live. So that's what I tried to do when I was recording the guitar parts. I tried to do as much in a row as possible in one continuous take. Now, actually, one of the first things that I wanted to do with this album creatively was, like, one of the very first thoughts was I wanted it to open with Praeludium and Allegro by Fritz Kreisler, which I remember learning on violin way back when I was a kid. So that was always kind of in my mind, that I wanted to open it up with that, like this neoclassical, like a big prog metal rendition of this classical piece. I figured, okay, we'll keep that kind of on the sidelines. Maybe I'll use this Praeludium and Allegro, but I'm gonna make the rest of the album first. And at the end, if I happen to have made an opening track that suits it better, by that point, then I'll use that instead. So Praeludium and Allegro, if I don't have anything better by the time this is done, then I'll use that. But so then I made the rest of the album, and of course during that time, I ended up creating my own opener. So I just named that Praeludium, kind of in the same vein as the Kreisler piece. And it does actually have a lot of similarities in the sound that I wanted to get. Redefinition, when I first wrote it as an instrumental track, it went by the name Dream Bunny. That was my running title. Then I ended up writing lyrics that had to do with following your dreams. And it's kind of based on an epiphany that I had during the pandemic, which is this illusion of success that prevents us from doing what we truly want to.
You cast aside your dream and redefine your need. You cut yourself into the shape the world wants you to be. You look like all the others. Spend your days in cold and lonely shell.
Success is really just a social construct. It's an illusion. No matter who you are, how good at something you are, and no matter where you are in your career, there's always going to be someone who is more successful. The best thing that you can do is be content with where you are and just do the thing. If all you want to do is be a musician or be a streamer or write a book, then do those things. Get those things out there yourself, create something beautiful, and be proud of it. But there is absolutely nothing preventing you from doing whatever your dream is. Now that we're in the digital age, you have so much freedom. So that's kind of what this song is about. It's the theme of just do the thing. No one's gonna stop you.
Hold on to the dream. It's all you'll ever need. In this moment, make yourself who you
possibilities. It is this that in all things distinguishes the strong soul from the weak.
Closer to Me is a very, very special song to me. I feel like I got a really good formula with this song where I feel like it just perfectly blended the technicality of progressive rock and a very catchy chorus and lyrical content that is truly meaningful to me. And I feel like a lot of other people will be able to relate to the lyrics as well, because they have to do with getting past toxic relationships and holding out and waiting for that one special person who was worth the wait.
Chasing horizons far beyond the sea, tracing visions in the stars, never meant to be. I will remember a true reality. The loneliness behind our eyes make you feel closer to me.
So after making it through a full day of drum tracking the other day and making it all the way through the first song, I got tired of walking around the kit to get to the computer to start and stop the recording. And I could have got around that if I had my wireless mouse, but it was out of batteries, and I couldn't find the little USB thing that plugs into the computer. So I was like, you know what? It'd just be easier to turn the whole drum set around, so then I can just swivel my chair and I'm right there at the computer. So if the drums sound a little bit different on the upcoming songs, that's why. It's just because I was too lazy to get another wireless mouse. So hopefully these tracks sound okay.
About getting past the horrible, straining times in life and finding that light at the end of the tunnel that was worth the patience and was worth the fight all along.
Chasing horizons far beyond the sea, the pain that brought us to this place all was meant to be. I will remember the truth that set me free.
Every time I listen to this song, it's a very moving experience for me that brings me back to all the bad times, to see how that grew me as a person, and how those were all stepping stones that led to something better. Now this time around in this album, most of it is vocal tracks. There aren't a whole lot of instrumental ones. There are just a few. So I wanted to have one track that was just really good, honest, proggy instrumental fusion. It's very inspired by retro kind of 80s fusion shred. So it was very fun to do. As far as compositionally speaking, like if you were to take the solos out of it, take the lead guitar out of it, take the keyboard solo out of it, and just have the background stuff, it's all very simple. this was my chance to kind of try out some different techniques, and I thought it was really fun. It's one of the hardest songs to play on guitar that I've ever written, even though everything else in the song is pretty simple. Afterglow was the product of this wonderful late night guitar session where I came back from a day of teaching guitar lessons, and I was tired, but I was just in a really good, serene place. So, really good mood. I came back into this room, I turned the lights down low, I had the electric fireplace going on just for some nice mood lighting, and I just started playing, and I recorded everything, so Afterglow was what I ended up playing, and I ended up putting that on the album and adding in vocals partway through. Well, kind of what I wanted to do was I didn't want this to be remembered as a vocal song, kind of the same way as a lot of the other tracks would be. I want this to feel like an instrumental, but to use the voice as an instrument. So this really is an instrumental composition.
Lost within a dream, drifting through a memory, warm and labyrinthine, endless gentle falling through the sea.
I recorded it and I felt like, hey, it might be cool if there was some other layer in there. So I ended up doing this entire choral arrangement. And when I added the choir into the mix, just to see what would happen, it was like, wow, it just added in this whole other dimension to it that just really added to the vibe. Believe it or not, when I first wrote Leap of Faith, I wrote it on the drums and then added guitar on top of that. And it just kind of grew from there. And then when it came time to put lyrics to it, I ended up writing the lyrics just about my creative process. About being in this headspace where anything is possible, having that leap of faith that what you make is going to sound good in the end. You gotta have the boldness to take risks if you want to create something that hasn't been done before.
Strike the canvas, make it bleed, tear the prison walls down till you're free. The web of lies you're weaving will never let you be, and your wings will turn to ashes as you fly. The limits you're believing become reality. Take a leap of faith into the night.
So something I've been trying out recently is these little vocal candies, basically. If you're ever having a bad day with like a dry voice or a cough or anything like that, you just pop out one of these little candies, toss it in your mouth, and you're pretty much good to go.
Into the Wild is so old. I've had this in my catalog of songs that I've been wanting to release for probably about 10 years. I think this album, it was so vocally driven that it just needed a couple of tracks where it was just instrumental shred prog. So I've had this song for a while, and it was cool to finally get to record it. It's got some interesting aspects to it, like it's in drop D. For one thing, I've never released a song on any of my solo albums yet that is in drop D tuning. I've always been a standard tuning kind of guy. I'm very vanilla, very boring. So this is a big step for me, so be proud of me.
No! I hit the spacebar with my headstock. No!
Rift was the final addition to the album. In fact, I wasn't even going to include it originally. I had the entire album done and I listened to it from start to finish, and I just said there's something missing right at this point. So I ended up taking some other drum parts that I had recorded, just some spare ones, crafted them into a cohesive flow, and then I ended up writing a song on top of that. To do with repairing broken relationships, having hope that someone will come back into your life after growing distant. I feel like everyone grew a little bit distant during the pandemic years, and sometimes it's just hard to think of what was, and you just have to have faith that it will come together again, and you'll speak to those people again, and you'll repair what fell apart. One thing that was really important to me when making this album was making sure that it had a nice flow from start to finish. So that meant making sure that the keys of each song lined up in a nice way. So trying to lump together songs that were in similar keys. When it came time to go from this group of songs that were in the key of D into this next one that was in the key of F, I wanted something to bridge that together. So I wanted to make a simple little instrumental guitar solo that goes from the key of D minor to the relative major of F major. So what I did is I ended up just plugging in my guitar and just playing some melodies. This was just kind of an off-the-cuff creation. It wasn't very pre-planned in any big way besides that. I just knew what my starting key was, what my ending key was, and then the rest of it was just... it happened. way back in, I believe, 2016 that I wrote Ivory. I was at Portage Place Mall in Winnipeg. A big, echoey space. I was hanging out on the second floor and just enjoying the day to myself. This was around the time that the mall was kind of getting ready to close, and they had a piano set up on the ground level right in the middle, where anyone could play who wanted to play. There was a kid who came up and was trying to play this piece. It was like he almost knew how to play the piano, but there was just that little bit of a barrier where he just couldn't quite find the right notes. But he was definitely trying to play something. I don't know what the piece was. He's trying to play something though. Little by little, making it further and further into this melody. But meanwhile, the mall was closing down, all the doors were starting to shut, and he was there for probably half an hour, I'd say, trying to get this melody out of his head and into the world. And I don't know why, I was just really moved by that. This kid who is trying so hard to get the music that they hear out into the world, and kind of racing against the clock, because as soon as the mall closes, that's it, that's their deadline, they've got to go. So that's what this song is about. It's just about that entire scene that I was just kind of hanging out there watching happen. Is one of those instrumentals that I've had in my back pocket for years. I played this at a bunch of my solo shows as kind of more of a stripped down guitar and synthesizer kind of instrumental, a very atmospheric instrumental. So then I recorded this for the album along with an orchestral part. I orchestrated everything just to have a nice climax for the album, and I ended up adding on a couple extra minutes to what I originally had so that I could revisit that melody introduced in Praeludium. So that way it kind of bookends the album with this nice, satisfying bit of continuity.
Alright, I just got out of the shower. Remember, if you want to clean up your mix, you gotta start by cleaning yourself.
Another thing that I wanted to do with this album was to have more vocal and lyrical content than previously, because before, I had mostly done just instrumental composition, but now this was a chance to really grow as a songwriter. So lyrically, what I wanted to do with this album was to have really inspirational lyrics that have a really rejuvenating quality to work on. So as I was working my way through each of these songs, the lyrics themselves were inspiring me to keep going and kind of refreshing my creativity as I was making my way through.